everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Alex and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite debuts. Now, I feel like when an author gets a pretty extensive backlist, most readers start to read their newer releases and kind of forget about their debut novel, where they got their start. And admittedly, there are plenty of debuts out there where you can tell it's an author's debut. They haven't quite been as polished as they have the potential to be, but there is every now and again a debut that's out there that is pretty damn flawless. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into today's video, if you're new here and you're not already, please be sure to go down and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. And without further ado, let's get started. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is actually a pretty recent read for me, and that is The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. Now, like I said, I just read this book back in April, so I talked about it in my April wrap-up. If you do want to check that out, I'll leave a card up above for you. But The Summer I Turned Pretty follows our main character, Belly, who is 15 at the beginning of the novel, and she is getting ready for summer, and they always go to this like lake house, beach house that they have. And this is the first year that Belly and her neighbors, there's like a family of brothers, they are starting to really kind of notice each other in a different way for the first time. And it's just that classic summer teen rom-com that we all know and love, and this was Jenny Han's debut. I feel like nobody has read this. It came out in 2009, so it is pretty backlist at this point, but it is phenomenal. Now, I mentioned this in my wrap-up video. I do feel like this is a little bit more on the younger side of YA. Like I said, Belly is 15 going on 16 throughout this novel, so she is a little bit younger in the YA spectrum, but I still feel like Jenny Han did a really nice job of balancing realistic teen behavior with things that older adults would like to read about. So I feel like it was done really, really well. This was an incredibly promising debut, turned into an entire trilogy, and then of course led to the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy that she is most known for. So if you really, really enjoyed To All the Boys and you have not picked up Jenny Han's debut, it's definitely one that I recommend, especially with summer coming around. The next one that I want to talk about is a book that is completely underrated in my opinion, and that is My Name is Venus Black by Heather Lloyd. Now, this is a book that I have only ever heard one other person talk about on BookTube, and I had never even heard of it myself. I happened to see it on the shelf at the library like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago at this point, and I just picked it up on a whim and read it and was incredibly impressed with this debut. This book follows our main character, Venus, who is the straight-laced A student who really is into astronomy, and one night she witnesses this family crime that kind of tears her family apart. She refuses to talk to anybody about it, and on top of everything that's happening with that, her younger brother, Leo, actually goes missing. Well, then our story picks up 5 years later, and Venus is about to move up to Seattle. She is still trying to look for her brother. She is still not talking to her mom, and she's trying to run away from what happened in the past, and she's starting to realize that she's never going to be able to move forward unless she can patch some things up. Now, this is just a debut that was really, really well done and really put together. I feel like a lot of the plot line was really nuanced and subtle, and I feel like there was a lot of depth to the plot that you usually don't see in an author's first novel, so I was definitely impressed by that. Really, really enjoyed all the characters, getting to learn about them individually, and then seeing the ways that they came together. Just, again, in general, this is one that nobody talks about, and it was so, so good. I believe that this one is classified as adult, but I feel like you could really read it at almost any age. Maybe if you have an older YA teenager in your life, maybe they would enjoy this one. It was really, really good, and Heather Lloyd has not come out with another novel yet, but as soon as she does, I'll definitely be picking it up. The next book that I'm going to talk about is Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. Now, I just did a backlist breakdown on Becky Albertalli, so again, if you have not seen the video, I will link it in a card up above. But Simon is one of the most iconic books of the last 5 years or so. It is incredible. Everybody has already read it, and it definitely stands as one of my favorite debuts. If you don't know what this book is about, it follows our main character, Simon, who is a typical high school student. He is out, he is openly gay, happy with his identity, and he winds up starting an email communication with this other person named Blue. Now Simon knows that Blue goes to his school. Blue is like a pseudonym for this person who doesn't yet feel comfortable coming out as gay. So Simon and Blue start to talk and start to like each other. But one day, one of Simon's classmates named Martin winds up finding out that Simon and Blue are emailing, and Martin basically threatens Simon, blackmails him, and says, if you don't be my wingman, then I'm going to out Blue and tell everybody what's going on. And then Simon has to deal with the consequences of that. Now again, this is just a classic YA novel at this point. It's been turned into a movie, it's getting turned into a TV show. It is one of the best debuts out there. The characters are all so well developed and they all have their own intricacies and little quirks, and then they come together in the most beautiful friend group. There is an amazing family aspect in this book as well, which is something that I feel like we don't see enough of in YA. So I really enjoyed getting to read that part of it. The plot moved forward like I thought it should, and just in general, this book is incredible. You guys know that Becky Albertalli is one of my favorite authors, and this just started the love for me. Now the next book that I'm going to talk about is another one of BookTube's favorites, and that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Now this book is an adult fantasy novel that essentially centers around this circus that appears at night without warning, and we follow our two main characters, Cecilia and Marco, who are young magicians, and they're gonna have to do this competition facing off against each other. The plot of this is a lot more complex than that, but to be completely honest, it's been a long time since I've read this and I don't remember every detail. But the thing that really stuck out to me about this book is the writing style. Erin Morgenstern has an incredibly unique writing style that just kind of sucks you into the story. One thing that I did like about this book is that part of it is written in second person, so it's like the author is talking to you, and there's little bits and pieces of that sprinkled in throughout the novel, which I thought really helped to pull you into the storyline. Other than that, the characters again in this are so well done, and just this is one of the most unique plots I've ever read. It was so good. And I will say, Erin Morgenstern's second novel just came out last fall in November, I think, and it was a long time after this one, but it was definitely worth the wait. This, if you need something completely atmospheric to take you away from your surroundings and just let you just be in the story, this is the perfect one. My next favorite debut is Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys, and again, I have a backlist breakdown all about this author's work as well. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it in a card up above. So this novel follows our main character, Lena, and it takes place in 1941, so this is a World War II historical fiction novel. Lena lives in Lithuania, and at the beginning of the novel, she and her family are gathered by the Nazis, and they are being taken to this concentration camp in Siberia, and we get to follow them on that horrible journey to this camp. Now, the thing that I really enjoyed about this, and the thing I enjoy about all of Ruta Sepetys' novels, is the kind of hidden history aspect. So a lot of us, when we learn about World War II, we obviously hear about the German concentration camps, but I had no idea about this event going on throughout World War II, these concentration camps in Siberia. So all of her books are historical fiction, but they are based in truth, things that we may not be studying in school. And I feel like this was a really powerful way to put that story out there. Obviously, trigger warnings galore for this book, but it was incredibly impactful. A lot of people have already read this one, and I believe that it was also made into a movie. The movie is called Ashes in the Snow, if I remember correctly. But this is one of the best World War II historical fiction novels that I've ever read. I absolutely adored it. If you haven't picked it up and you like World War II historical fiction, what are you doing? You can't have a list of favorite debuts without including The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is one that, again, just completely took the world by storm a couple of years ago, and for good reason. So this novel follows our main character, Star, and at the beginning of the novel, she is in the car with her friend Khalil. They wind up getting pulled over by a cop, and this white cop gets out, gets in an altercation with Khalil, and winds up shooting and killing him, which becomes national news. Now, obviously, this is a novel that's really dark. There's a lot going on and a lot of trigger warnings here, but I feel like Angie Thomas handled the topic with care. She did not shy away from the results of what happened or how brutal and horrible and terrifying that this event was, but she still handled them in a way that was digestible. So I feel like she struck a beautiful balance. Again, Angie Thomas has a really distinct writing style. She has since come out with another book called On the Come Up, and you can still see her signature writing style there. there. Again, for very good reason. This is one that has just taken the world by storm, and this one was also made into a movie. Another one that I feel like is very, very underrated is You'll Miss Me When I'm Gone by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This book follows our two main characters, 18-year-old twins Adina and Tova, and the twins' mother has been diagnosed with Huntington's disease. So when the girls turn 18, they decide to take a test to see if they are going to develop the disease as well. And when they get the results back, it turns out that one twin will develop the disease and the other twin will not. So then the girls and their family are having to deal with what this is going to mean for them going forward. Now, one thing I'll definitely commend this novel on is the diversity. We have a bunch of side characters that are diverse in a bunch of different ways, and obviously our two main characters are Jewish, and we have a lot of discussion about chronic illness. I will say the one thing that I did not like so much about this novel is that I felt like the characters could be a little bit bratty at times, but when you put it in perspective that they are only 18 years old and they're having to deal with this really, really life-changing news, you can kind of put that in perspective and understand what their actions are, where they're coming from. But I'll just admit that they were being a little bit bratty throughout the novel, so if that's gonna bother you, that's the only complaint that I had about this one. But other than that, this is a perfect example of a well-crafted debut. The characters are very, very well developed beyond the initial storyline. The whole family relationship and the family dynamics are beautifully done. They have wonderful relationships with the side characters. The plot moves along really well. This is obviously a dark novel, but again, it was palatable. It was just in general done really, really beautifully. And this author has put out one novel since this, and she has another novel coming out in June, which I'm very, very excited to get to both of them. And the last debut that I'm going to talk about today is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. This book follows our main character, April May. She lives in New York City, and one day she is walking through the streets of New York in the middle of the night, like 3 in the morning, and she runs into this giant robot statue type thing that she dubs Carl. Well, she winds up taking a video with it, just trying to be funny. She puts it online and wakes up the next morning to discover that her video has gone completely viral because these Carls are popping up all over the world with absolutely no explanation. So April May suddenly finds herself as kind of the ambassador, talking about these Carls, trying to figure out where they came from, who sent them, what they're supposed to mean, and having to deal with this viral fame all at once. Now, this is one that I feel like struck a really, really good balance between the main storyline and the social commentary that's going on. So the storyline itself, the characters, again, were incredibly well developed. There is a little bit of diversity in here. Our main character is bisexual, and I feel like that representation was done really well. And just in general, I really enjoyed the main character. That, I feel like, is a strong point of this novel. The plot moved forward really, really nicely and left a really interesting ending for the second book coming out in July. And then as far as the social commentary goes, there is a lot of talk about social media in our day and age and online fame, everything that that entails. And I feel like that conversation was done really well and kept relevant to the story without overpowering it and seeming preachy. So just again, in general, this was a really, really solid debut novel, and I can't wait to read the sequel and see what else Hank Green has up his sleeve. But that is it for some of my favorite debuts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and let me know some of your favorite debuts. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to go down and give it a big thumbs up, as well as hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon down below so that you never miss out on any of my content. So until next time, bye!